Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down my top 36 wide receiver rankings and tiers for week number 6 of the 2024 fantasy football season. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you guys would like access to my updated rankings, I update all of my rankings: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, kicker, and defense every single day, and they're upgraded on Patreon. So make sure you guys check that out. $7.50 a month, linked in the video description. So without further ado, let's get into my top 36 wide receiver rankings and tiers for week number 6 of the 2024 fantasy football season. We begin with my must-start wide receiver 1 tier with my wide receivers 1 through 6. At number 1, we have CeeDee Lamb of the Dallas Cowboys going up against the Detroit Lions at home in Jerry's World. Now, CeeDee Lamb has been on a bit of a rocky road like the ice cream this season. He starts off the season as the wide receiver 23, followed by 15, 52, 4, and 42. And while obviously that has been far from ideal, and he is currently the wide receiver 13 in PPR, I do believe that there are brighter days ahead for CeeDee Lamb. This is a matchup that reeks of points, a very high scoring back and forth affair, and I think CeeDee Lamb returns to form as a top 6 wide receiver on the week. At number 2, we got Jamar Chase of the Cincinnati Bengals going up against the New York Football Giants in MetLife. Now, this is another game that you smell it through the screen. It reeks of points. Jamar Chase has been on fire. NBA Jam style wide receiver 1, 19, and 2 over the last 3 weeks, and he's currently the wide receiver number 1 on the season. The Giants defense is definitely better than most of us will give them credit for, but they are certainly still not one of the toughest defensive matchups in the NFL. I believe in Jamar Chase, his skill set, the fact that he is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, and I also believe that the Giants offense is good enough to push this game into being a high-scoring game where the Bengals have to throw a bunch late, and that is going to lead to Jamar Chase finishing inside the top 6. At number 3, we got Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Detroit Lions going up against the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas. Outside of week 1, where Amon-Ra St. Brown was a complete and utter fucking disgrace, he has been the wide receiver 10, 11, and 11. This week, a top 6 finish, his best finish yet, to me, is what feels like what is going to be coming our way. Again, when we talked about CeeDee Lamb, I talked about how excited I was for this to be a very high-scoring game. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown's safety week in and week out. He should be an 8+ target guy any given game. Back in week 2, the man had 18 targets, so the upside is always there, and he definitely feels like a nice, safe condom wrap around your team. At number 4, we got Drizzy Drake London of the Atlanta Falcons going up against the Carolina Panthers in Carolina. Now, I do think in a way we kind of do need to slow our roll when it comes to Drake London, because just having one huge game where you finish as the wide receiver 2 shouldn't instantly catapult you into the top 6. Last week up against the Bucks, Thursday Night Football, 12 receptions on 13 targets for 151 yards and a touchdown. And I get, just because you have one big game, we shouldn't be fondling your nuts like a fushigi, but going up against the Carolina Panthers is a wet dream spot. Kirk Cousins looked so much better last week. I think that the ceiling here for Drake London is being the wide receiver 1 in fantasy football in any given week. So I feel confident with my ranking here. At number 5, we got Jaden Riley-Reed of the Green Bay Packers going up against the Arizona Cardinals at home in Green Bay. Now, everyone last week was slobbering on Jaden Reed's knob like it was corn on the cob. They were doing tricks on it, SSX style. And this week, up against the Arizona Cardinals, I am going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to be doing tricks on it like my name was Tony Hawk. Now, I understand that being the wide receiver 26, an amazing spot up against the Rams, is definitely far from ideal, but this Packers offense is built to score a gazillion points in any given game. They could score 30 or 40 plus points. This spot up against the Arizona Cardinals is another one that could be very high scoring. Push the Packers to throw the ball a lot late in the game, and I'm ecstatic about a Jaden Reed bounce back. At number 6, speaking of bounce back, we got a comeback A.J. Brown of the Philadelphia Eagles going up against the Cleveland Browns. Week 1 in the BBL Bowl in Brazil up against the Packers. 5 receptions on 10 targets for 119 yards and a touchdown. Now, he has not played since the hamstring injury, but now he is back. And I get that the matchup up against the Cleveland Browns isn't the softest matchup to dive into, right? It's not like he's going up against the Panthers. It's not like he's going up against the Jaguars. It's not like he's going up against one of the worst defenses in the NFL, but the Cleveland Browns defense also isn't as good as we honestly all gave them credit for all summer long and entering into the season. So I have no worries about A.J. Brown, who is the clear wide receiver 1 in this Eagles offense. Next up, we move into the almost must-start low-end wide receiver 1 tier, beginning with Wiki DJ Moore of the Chicago Bears going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars in London. Now, my biggest worry about DJ Moore is the fact that the game is London, and we all know when they go over the pond and they have to play in a different country, things tend to get a little bit weird, right? Sometimes a matchup that you expect to be an absolute barn burner ends up being a straight up snooze fest, right? And while that can happen in the United States, right, we expect a game to be real high scoring and it ends up being more of a defensive chess masterclass. In London, in these overseas games, it happens more than it would in the US, at least in my opinion. But this matchup up against the Jacksonville Jaguars is amazing. This is a barbecue chicken matchup for DJ Moore, who finished as a top 6 wide receiver last week, back-to-back weeks with a touchdown, and I think he looks to repeat as a top 12 wide receiver yet again up against a garbage Jaguars defense. At number 8, we got Chris Godwin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going up against the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans. Now, in my opinion, Mike Evans has earned the spot above Chris Godwin at this point in the season, regardless of how consistent the target volume is for Chris Godwin. Mike Evans just wipes the floor with him because of the touchdown upside, because the fact that any given game, even if he just sees 5 targets, he could have 4 receptions for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns, right? But this week, there's a little bit of a wrinkle into this, and that wrinkle's name is Marshawn Lattimore. Typically, Mike Evans and Marshawn Lattimore go at it. They have a straight up fucking brawl on the Saints logo at center field. Now, obviously, are we guaranteed to get a fight? Probably not. But what I will say is, even if there is no fight, typically Marshawn Lattimore locks Mike Evans up and throws away the key. Mike Evans will dominate any corner. I don't give a shit. It could be prime time Deion Sanders. You could put Patrick Surtain on him. Prime Jalen Ramsey. Prime Revis Island. And honestly, I think Mike Evans will be able to fend for himself. But for some reason, even if Marshawn Lattimore isn't the best cornerback in the NFL, Marshawn Lattimore always finds a way. He just has Mike Evans' number. So that makes me feel very confident that we're to see a healthy dosage of Chris Godwin here. And he is going to get back to his old ways, being a top 12 wide receiver. At number 9, we have Stephon Diggs of the Houston Texans going up against the New England Patriots in Foxborough. Now, with 9-inch Nico Collins, I guess 9-inch Nico Collins, he has been playing that well, so he does kind of deserve that nickname. That's Nick Chubb's nickname, so I can't give it to him. Nico Cousin, Let's Go Bowling Collins on the IR leads to Stephon Diggs being the wide receiver number 1. Diggs was a locked and loaded top 24 wide receiver weekly with Nico Collins, but now that he's going to be seeing even more volume, I love Nico Collins here. I get the matchup up against the Patriots isn't necessarily the best, right? There are much better matchups out there, but with him seeing so many targets in this spot, I got him as a stone cold lock to be a top 12 wide receiver. At number 10, we got Garrett Wilson of the New York Jumbo Jets going up against the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football. Back-to-back primetime games on that MetLife turf. What could possibly go wrong? Knock on wood, we don't root for injuries. All I'm saying is, what could possibly go wrong with that? I'm not rooting for anyone to get hurt. I would never root for an injury. I just don't get the thought process in doing that. But Garrett Wilson versus the Buffalo Bills. Now, Garrett Wilson finally gets the monkey off his back last week, and the motherfucker got 23 targets. There are some quarterbacks that might not throw 23 times in some games. Now, obviously, most games, you're throwing more than 23 times. But this motherfucker had 23 targets, 13 receptions, 101 yards, and a touchdown. Now, the fact that he only had 101 yards on 23 targets is absurd in itself. You get that many targets, you should be past 150. But hey, he had a great game, wide receiver number 5. The matchup here up against the Bills is definitely not as ideal. But if Aaron Rodgers just continues to laser eye focus onto Garrett Wilson, then we are going to be very ecstatic, because I talked people into drafting Garrett Wilson all summer long, and hopefully this is the new trend. Obviously, if he gets 23 fucking targets, that would be insane. But if he could just get 10 a week, then we're going to be mighty fine with Garrett Wilson. Next up, we got Diontae Johnson, who's got the Q tag, questionable with the ankle injury for week number 6. It feels like Diontae Johnson has been questionable every single week of this season, and he's played in every single game. Now, last week, despite the fact that the matchup was harder than your cock off some Viagra, I did honestly think that Diontae Johnson was still going to succeed up against the Bears. I thought, you know what? The matchup, it's a wazzy, it's a woozy. Don't worry too much about that. Don't worry about it, big fella. And then Diontae Johnson did diddly squat. 6 targets, 3 receptions, 23 receiving yards, 6 rushing yards, 6 fantasy points. Prior to that, though, he's the wide receiver 10 and 6 with Andy Dalton. The Falcons defense just got pulverized by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I think Andy Dalton has a get-right game here with Diontae Johnson for him to finish as a top 12 fringe guy. At number 12, we got T. Higgins of the Cincinnati Bengals going up against the Giants in MetLife. T. Higgins had his get-right game last week. 14 targets, 9 receptions, 83 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Back-to-back weeks with over 10 targets. Again, while the Giants defense is better than people give them credit for, I do really believe this game has the making of the high-scoring game that's going to push T. Higgins to have an even better game than what we are normally coming accustomed to when it comes to the number 2 receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Mixon, who's in Houston with Stephon Diggs, Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty has been playing out of his mind over the last couple of weeks, ever since week 1, where he shit down his pant leg up against the Giants. I got T. Higgins ranked a little bit higher than expert consensus rankings. He's currently the wide receiver 8 in ECR. He is my wide receiver number 12. But I agree with myself because, again, I think this matchup has all the makings of that very high-scoring game. At number 13, we got Maserati, Marvin Harrison Jr., going up against the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay. Now, Marvin Harrison has proven to us this season that he is just not going to be consistent. Now, maybe as the season goes along, right, we're just 5 weeks in, the consistency starts to be more prevalent. But as of right now, the consistency is non-existent. Wide receiver 103. 1, 20, 26, and 59. And while the production hasn't been consistent, the targets have been. He's a 7+ target guy a week with a competent quarterback in Kyler Murray in a matchup that reeks of fireworks. Katy Perry, very high scoring showing here up against the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau. So while the consistency might not be there, I don't think we want to bury Mr. Maserati Marv down the rankings just yet. Moving now into the 3rd tier here, which is the high-end wide receiver 2s. We begin with Terry McLaurin, wide receiver of the left hands up. Who are we? The Commanders at the Baltimore Ravens. Now, when it comes to Terry McLaurin, the quarterback play in Washington has been impeccable. The touchdowns have been beautiful. When Terry McLaurin gets thrown a fucking rope on a dime and he catches it, it's beautiful, like Madeline Klein in Outer Banks. Shout out to Sarah Cameron. But Terry McLaurin going up against the Ravens here. This is another matchup that has me salivating, thinking about how high scoring it could be. The Ravens defense is overrated, and Terry McLaurin has been on a warpath, wide receiver 14, 16, and 27. Even though I love the matchup, I don't want to really get too high on Terry McLaurin and rank him higher than this in the tier above, but I do definitely believe he belongs inside of the top 16 wide receiver conversation, and I wouldn't be shocked this week if he was the wide receiver number 1. Number 2 here in this tier, the other high-end wide receiver 2 is Wan'Dale Robinson of the New York Football Giants going up against the Bengals at home in MetLife. No Malik Neighbors due to the concussion. I hope he's okay. Like I say in every single video, trying to figure out when a player is going to come back from a concussion is virtually impossible. Sometimes the concussion isn't very severe, like Josh Allen. You could just come back into the game, do some smelling salts, and you're all good. Other times, you're out for multiple weeks, like Malik Neighbors, Tua Tagovailoa. Wan'Dale Robinson, we just know the targets are going to be there. Danny Dimes is going to feed this motherfucker 9 or more targets. Now, is Wan'Dale Robinson the most talented wide receiver on earth? Fuck no, baby. But what Wan'Dale Robinson is a target hog. He is a target monster. Okay? So while the talent might not be there, right? While I'm not going to sit here and wax poetically about how great of a player Wan'Dale Robinson is, when the targets come and you are at least competent enough to put your hands around the football and catch it, you're going to be ranked highly. Back-to-back weeks inside of the top 18. Again, we can't really glaze him because, last week he did score the touchdown. I get it. I don't think he's a touchdown guy in reality. I think he's like a 7-8 reception guy, 70 yards, top 18 finish. That's just what he is. Is it fun to play him? Not really, but he gets it done. He gets it done. If you're in a standard league, though, no reason to play Wan'Dale because all of his money is made in just getting 1 million receptions. Next up, we move to the mid-range wide receiver 2 tier. But before we talk about this tier as well as the other 3 tiers before we skedaddle our way on out of here, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends and our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using promo code Notorious, you will get your free pick, which is Joe Burrow, higher than half of a total yard. You match that with any of the other players playing on Sunday, not on the Bengals or on Monday, and you receive 3 times what you put into your pick'em. If you do multiple other picks, then the payout will obviously be higher. If you sign up using promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description, you get that free pick, Joe Burrow, higher than half a total yard. You'll also receive a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash, so make sure you guys check that out. Promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description. So back to the mid-range wide receiver 2 tier here, beginning with Zay Flowers. Now, Zay Flowers is one of, if not the most game script dependent wide receivers in the National Football League. When the Baltimore Ravens are up, they are just going to run the ball with Derrick Henry every single fucking play. They're going to bring the boom and just try to truck through the opponents, get them tired out, and have Derrick Henry run a train like their name was Bobby Bacala. But, and this is a big but, shout out to Kim Kardashian, in the games where things are not just a dominating factor, chains and whips by the Baltimore Ravens, when we have a game that is much more of a back and forth fight, you are going to see Zay Flowers ball. He's the clear best receiver on this team. And in the games where it's a competitive matchup, he's balled out. Week 1, could have scored that touchdown up against the Chiefs, but he had 11 fantasy points, which isn't the best game ever, but he had 10 targets, should have scored that touchdown. The next week up against the Raiders, he was the wide receiver 11. Then up against Dallas, they smack him up, front hand, backhand, Key and Peele, wide receiver 71. Then the next week, they smack up the Buffalo Bills, wide receiver 94. But then up against the Bengals, when it's the firefight, the back and forth affair, wide receiver number 4. With 12 total targets. This week feels more like the fun back and forth game that gets Zay Flowers involved compared to the absolute snooze fest for Zay Flowers where he's seeing like 3 fucking targets. So up against the Commanders, as long as things don't get out of hand, Flowers should have a good game. But again, the Ravens offense is also kind of a wagon. So if they are able to get up ahead and Jaden Daniels is a rookie and he starts struggling, that is what ultimately worries me enough to not put him in the tier with Terry and Wan'Dale. Next up, we got Chris Olave, wide receiver of the New Orleans Saints, going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, when it comes to Chris Olave, I had an epiphany yesterday or the day before, and it was when I saw the interview of Spencer Rattler. Now, when it came out that Spencer Rattler was going to be the guy, I started to panic a little bit, right? Because Chris Olave isn't a guy like Rashid Shaheed, where you need 2 catches that you could turn to 130 yards and a touchdown, right? Chris Olave needs to be fed. He needs the 8-7 targets a game at least to have a competent game, whereas Rashid Shaheed just needs the fuck it Rashid Shaheed out there somewhere. Spencer Rattler throws a missile, Cuban missile style, and it lands in his hands and he goes into the end zone, right? Whereas Olave needs that voluptuous amount of targets like Violet Myers' ass. So Chris Olave last week, dead in the water, sleeping with the fishes, Luca Brasi style, wide receiver 78 with just 4 targets. But Spencer Rattler came out and said, that was the point of this. I'm going to get it to Chris Olave early and often, essentially. I am going to feed Chris Olave. So while there's obviously the worries that Spencer Rattler just sucks donkey cock, the upside is way too high for me to rank him lower than this, which is why, if you guys notice, sometimes my opinion changes from Tuesday when you get the wide receiver starts it video to Friday when you get the wide receiver ranking video. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button though, because getting those 2 opinions definitely is helpful because it shows how my mind changes. And also, you got a nice early look on into things on Tuesday. Next up, we move to Devontae Smith, the Slim Reaper of the Eagles, going up against the Browns. Devontae Smith just feels like a safe bet to be a top 24 guy. With A.J. Brown, the upside is in a way neutered because you're never going to see him get like 12 or more targets, which was possible without A.J. Brown, but he's also going to get a reliable 7 targets, right? He should be able to get 70 yards. Typically, he's catching basically every single ball is thrown his way. So he gets 7 receptions on 8 targets. He gets 70 yards. You're fine, right? You're a top 24 wide receiver. And then there's going to be the games where he scores the touchdown. There's going to be the games where he breaks free and gets loose like O.J. Simpson and runs into the end zone. So Devontae Smith feels like a nice, safe bet to be a top 24 wide receiver with the upside, again, very limited because of A.J. Brown. Next up, we got Darnell. Here comes the Mooney. Money, 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 money. Dollar bills, y'all. If you picked them up off the waiver wire, you are going to be ecstatic about this ranking because going up against the Carolina Panthers in Carolina has me just buzzing. This is the type of matchup where if you watch those old cartoons where they smell the pie and then they start fucking levitating. That's the type of matchup I'm feeling for going up against the Carolina Panthers. Cole's Cash Kirk Cousins has been dealing like he works at a casino, and I expect another solid showing up against the Panthers. Now, do I expect 2 touchdowns and 105 yards, 16 targets as the wide receiver 3, which is what we saw last week? Of course not. But I expect a safe amount of volume to at least finish as a top 24 guy with the upside very clearly being there. Next up, we move to Brian Thomas Jr., BTJ of the Jacksonville Jaguars going up against the Chicago Bears in London. Tough spot for Brian Robinson, which is why we don't have him ranked higher, but take me higher. But the reason why I still have trust in him is because even in the tough matchups, he has been solid. He's been a top 9 wide receiver in back-to-back showings, and there is 0 reason why he couldn't do it again. Now, obviously, the matchup is going to hold him down. Obviously, the fact that he's not ranked higher is for a fucking reason. It's because the Bears' defense is incredibly legit, but Trevor Lawrence loves feeding the guy. 8 or more targets in back-to-back-to-back games, 1 or more touchdowns in 3 of 5 games. And I said, or more, as if he scored 2. Just 1 touchdown in 3 of 5 games. But hey, that's 3 touchdowns on the season for a rookie with a solid base of volume. If he absolutely ended up being a fat old bust this week, I wouldn't be surprised. But the upside is too prevalent to rank him lower. Now we move on into the low-end wide receiver 2s and the high-end wide receiver 3s, headlined by Mike Evans of the New Orleans Saints going up against the New Orleans Saints. Did I say he was on the New Orleans Saints? You guys get what I mean. He's basically going to be on the Saints this week because he's probably not going to do anything. Again, the problem here is the matchup. The matchup is incredibly rough, like getting your nuts rubbed by some sandpaper. But Mike Evans is really good, right? So while history shows us that, hey, Marshawn Lattimore owns Mike Evans, sometimes history doesn't repeat itself, right? Sometimes Mike Evans might go out there You know, maybe it's not all the simulations, right? If you're Doctor Strange and there's a bazillion situations, sure. Maybe a lot of the times Mike Evans does get locked up, but it's like that speech of USA versus Russia in hockey. If you've seen the film, if you know what happens, miracle on ice, right? The Russians beat us 9 out of 10 times, but not tonight, right? Mike Evans gets locked up by Marchand Lattimore 9 out of 10 times, but not tonight. Marchand Lattimore will get dog-walked by Marchand Lattimore. Mike Evans will get dog-walked by Marchand Lattimore 9 out of 10 times, but not today, motherfucker. So while I am worried, if you wanted to rank him even lower than I have him ranked, I wouldn't judge you at all. I do find it hard to not at least throw Mike Evans in the flex, because if it does go right, it could go very right, and he could easily be a top 5 wide receiver. Next up, we got Christian Kirk, Mr. CK, and we ain't talking Calvin Klein, going up against the Chicago Bears. The volume has been tremendous. 10 targets, 12 targets, and then he fell a little bit down, 4 for 4 like he was at Wendy's for 88 yards last week. Again, I get the matchup here is tough, but I think when you have a guy that you could project, hey, it wouldn't be crazy if he got 10 or more targets in this game, so that's where the ranking comes from. Next up, we got George Pickens. Now, George Pickens has been given a nice bump up recently because the team has been a lot more confident in throwing the football. In prior weeks to start off the season, this was a team that was throwing less than 30 times a game. This was a team that was basically just making Justin Fields play into his element. Hey, don't throw the ball a million yards down the field. Hey, don't make stupid mistakes. Throw the ball safe, keep the ball safe, run the rock if you have to, take a sack to your face like your name is Angela White if you need, but make sure you don't make any stupid fucking boneheaded decisions, any knucklehead decisions. Knucklehead is a great insult. And don't throw an interception. Just keep things simple, stupid. Keep it simple, stupid, the KISS method. And it worked. But it was bad for George Pickens. Why? Because if you're not throwing the ball, then George Pickens can't get targets. But recently, they've started to throw the ball more. But still, there is the downside of George Pickens, which is even if he's getting 7 or more targets a game, Justin Fields isn't the most accurate guy out there, right? There's games where Justin Fields can't hit the broadside of a barn. So he might get 7 targets like up against Dallas, but for 3 receptions and 26 yards. The thing is here, while the Dallas defense is overrated, the Raiders defense is terrible. So in this spot, I do believe he will have a top 24-ish game here. He's had one this season up against the Colts, which was a wet dream matchup. He also had one up against the Atlanta Falcons earlier on in the season. So while there are a lot of negatives, there is also one big positive, and that is that George Pickens is very, very good. Next up, we got Jameson Williams' friend, Rashid Shaheed. I know. I thought that the next guy was Jameson Williams. I looked at the graphic, and for some reason, fucking Rashid Shaheed blended in. I couldn't see him John Cena style. He had the invisibility cloak on. Rashid Shaheed, I'm Shaheed, going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, the biggest detractor towards Rashid Shaheed, potentially, appendixly, going balls deep into the Buccaneers defense is the quarterback play. Can Spencer Rattler get it done? Now, Spencer Rattler was cooking like Chef Boyardee in the preseason. He was playing very well. There were a lot of Saints fans on Twitter clamoring for Spencer Rattler's to start and not Derek Carr. But then Derek Carr comes out the season looking hot, okay? He was coming out hot tamale like Selena Gomez in Spring Breakers. But then he simmered down a little bit. But still, Rashid Shaheed reigns supreme. Wide receiver 15, 13, 157, 25, and 15. So while I think Spencer Rattler definitely puts a whole big wrench into things here, while he does put a whole lot more unknown into the situation, the upside remains the same. Next up, we got Jameson Williams. Now, Jameson Williams, it's been a tale of 2 halves of the season. He had a bye week last week, so he's only played 4 games. Week 1 and week 2. The guy is just dominating the targets. He is getting so many targets. 9 targets, 11 targets. And then Target closed. You know, it was past 1 a.m. They closed down. You got to go to fucking Walmart if you want a bag of Skittles, right? Then 3 targets, then 2 targets. So they're coming out of the bye week. What's going to happen? Are we going to get the beginning of the season where Jameson Williams is getting fed like a fat kid at Thanksgiving? Or or like a seal, are we going to see Jameson Williams come out with 3 targets? Because if he keeps getting 3 targets, we've moved back to what last year was, where you played him praying for the upside that he catches one of his 2-3 targets and takes it straight to the crib, which is what happened up against Seattle in week 4. 2 targets, 2 receptions, 80 yards, and a touchdown. But you can't just, rank him this highly if you're getting 2 or 3 targets. Like, I know Shaheed is a touchdown prayer, right? You need the touchdown to really go over the top, but Shaheed is still getting like 7 targets a game. 5, 4, 5, 11, and 9. The guy's great. Jameson Williams is great. You could make an argument that Jameson Williams, in terms of skill, I think Mike Evans is clearly better than him. But, besides Mike Evans, you can argue, hey, he's the most skilled guy here. But the volume just isn't voluming, right? The volume just ain't there. Next up, we got Josh Downs going up against the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee. Logged a full practice on Friday with the toe. Questionable for week 6. Now, this guy could go out there with fucking Chinese foot binding, if you know what that is. That's from, I learned this in history class in high school, where, what they would do is they wanted to make their feet smaller. So they would put their feet into these small shoes, and it would lead to their feet being very messed up. It's actually pretty sad, to be completely honest with you. But, Josh Downs' foot could look like that. His foot, they could cut off, amputate 3 of his fucking toes, okay? And I still believe he would go out there with cool Joe Flacco and be a top 12 wide receiver, top 18 wide receiver. But there's no guarantee it's Flacco. Now, Anthony Richardson's a game time decision. This game is at 1, which is good. So we'll know at around 12, is it going to be Richardson or not? Because if it's Anthony Richardson, we're running for the hills, right? We are running clear away from this situation. But if it is cool Joe Flacco, we like Josh Downs in this range. And honestly, we might even move him up a little bit higher. But there is the fact that he's injured. That also does worry me a bit, right? Because I know I made that joke, even if he had fucking 3 toes, this, that, and the other thing, right? Having a foot injury, toe injury, could very severely impact his play. Next up, we move to the wide receiver 3 tier, beginning with my main man, Jalen Tolbert. I love Jalen Tolbert. Talked him up a lot in the offseason. I talked him up in waiver wire videos. And now here we are, sitting here, and we're saying, hey, can you do it again? Wide receiver 12 last week, 10 receptions, 10 targets, 7 receptions, 87 yards, and a touchdown. Game-winning touchdown. GWG. Girls Gone Wild. Game-winning touchdown. What the fuck? Why did I think touchdown started with a G? I'm just a horny bastard there. Game-winning, go-ahead touchdown, baby. That's what that was. But Jalen Tolbert, no Brandon Cooks because he's got the infection, World War Z style. So I love this spot against the Texans. But again, there is the clear disappointment factor because up against the Giants, just in week 4, we talked about, Jalen Tolbert getting a little spicy, getting more targets, getting more involved. See it. I like the spot against the Giants. Should be a fun spot. Very cool, right? And then he gets 3 targets, 3 receptions, 24 yards, and face fucks you. So while I love the matchup, I'm ready to be let down. Next up, we got Tank Dell, wide receiver of the Houston Texans. Now, this year, I feel like I have been catfished by Tank Dell. I feel like I have been. I feel like, what's that guy's name? The Hawaiian guy. Oh, man, I can't remember his name. He used to play on Notre Dame, played defense from Hawaii. He is a oos like Tua. Fuck, I don't remember his name. And now everyone in the comment section will be like, Nick, you fucking idiot. How did you not remember his name? His name is this. And he's on TV right now. He's on NFL Network. Whatever, it is what it is. You know who I'm talking about. Manti Te'o. I feel like I've been catfished, right? I feel like Tank Dell catfished me, man. Because I really thought, based on everything CJ Stroud was saying in the summer, that Tank Dell was in it to win it. Oh, yeah, push it to the limit, right? He was going to go out there and be the clear wide receiver too. But now Nico Collins is gone, okay? So while Tank Dell has let us down all season long, it's time for the get-right game, and it's up against the Patriots. Next up, we got Jacoby Myers of the Las Vegas Raiders going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Questionable with the ankle injury. Continue to monitor his practice health. Now, going up against the Steelers is far from ideal, but without Devontae Adams, he's going to get 9 or more targets. Now, the question is, can he do anything with them? Skill set is there. Jacoby Myers is incredibly skilled, incredibly underrated. Problem, the team isn't very good. Problem, the quarterback play isn't very good. Maybe Aiden O'Connell adds a slight spark to this offense, but even then, it's not like he brings in some boom, boom, firepower, right? It's not like he's going to come in there and be the second coming of Patrick Mahomes. He's just going to be maybe slightly better Gardner Minshew. So Jacoby Myers, while the upside's there, he was the wide receiver 9 a couple of weeks ago up against the Carolina Panthers. This isn't the Carolina Panthers. This is the fucking Pittsburgh Steelers, one of the better defenses in the NFL. Next up, we got Michael Pittman Jr. Now, the report a couple days ago was that Michael Pittman Jr. was out, right? He wasn't going to play. He's going to get put on IR. His back hurts, okay? But then comes out, oh, he's actually practicing in full on Friday. And I watched a video of him talking in his locker today, and he said that while he is hurt, he doesn't feel it on Sundays. He's going to play through it. So let's see. Will he play? Will he not play? Will he get thrown on IR? Those are all things that are in the realm of possibilities. There's the one possibility where he plays on Sunday. He's a top 24 wide receiver. There's another where he plays on Sunday. His back is fucked up. He starts feeling it, and he's out for the game. And then they throw him on IR. Or we get to Sunday. He tries to go. They're like, shut him down. And they put him on IR. So there's a lot of outcomes here, which puts a lot of risk into things. Because again, if Joe Flacco was playing, he's been a top 24 wide receiver in back-to-back weeks, so you would just rank him there. The Titans defense doesn't really scare me. You just point blank throw him in there. But since there is the clear injury issue, since there's also the fact that Richardson might play, it kind of just buries him down here. Next up, we move to Courtland Sutton, the final wide receiver in this tier, going up against the Eagles in Philly. The Eagles have been a complete and utter disaster. There's talks about trading a couple of players on the defense. There's talks about how the Eagles are frauds, this, that, and the other thing. The defense sucks more cock than a Bang Bros model here. But Amari Cooper, problem for him? The quarterback play. Deshaun Watson stinks. Deshaun Watson is not very good, guys. Sorry to tell you, Deshaun Watson is the reason why we can't rank Amari Cooper any higher. He's going to get 8 or more targets. He's gotten 8 or more targets in every single game. But the problem is when the target doesn't even come within a fucking school zone radius of you, how are you going to catch it, right? Amari Cooper isn't like Mrs. Incredible, right? Where she can like stretch her arm. And that's why she has such a big ass, because she can stretch her ass out. Not enough people talk about that. But Amari Cooper doesn't have the Michael Jordan from Space Jam ability to reach his arm out and fucking grab the ball from out of thin air when Deshaun Watson misses him by a quarter mile. So while the upside is there, the fact that Deshaun Watson's his quarterback completely buries him. Final tier here is the dart throws. Now, Brian Callahan was asked, hey, oh wait, I lied, because we have one more guy in this tier, but it is what it is. We're going to just talk about him. We'll leave the other thing on the screen. We're not going to have to sit here and make a cut. You know, you guys can see sometimes you mess up, right? It's okay, right? Unless I like really messed up, then I'm not going to cut something out, of course. So Courtland Sutton versus the Chargers. Just a bad matchup for him. Bo Nix has played better. Courtland Sutton's the clear target, number 1 on the team, but Bo Nix isn't the best, and the matchup isn't the best, so that's why he's ranked here. The dart throws, I don't know why Calvin Ridley isn't getting the ball more. I really don't, because Calvin Ridley should be a guy that gets at least a lot of targets, right? He just should be. Right? The Titans are a team that can afford to throw the ball to him a bunch. And then Brian Callahan, head coach of the team, gets asked, hey, Mr. Coach, why is Calvin really not getting the ball? And he's like, maybe we need to get the ball more. We paid him $80 million. I don't know what to do. Will Levis fucking sucks. Right? He's like panicking up there. Okay? And I get why he would panic. Because he paid Calvin Ridley $8 gazillion, and the motherfucker has 3 targets in back-to-back games. Going up against the Colts, the type of matchup that I am bricked up just thinking about underneath my desk right now. I am rock hard under my desk like my name was Bill Clinton. But, and this is a big but, no Monica Lewinsky here, Indianapolis Colts, while the matchup might be ripe for the taking. What am I meant to do when I don't trust Levis? When I don't trust Rudolph, even if it's Rudolph, even though I think it's going to be Levis? What are you to do? The answer is nothing. You can start him because, hey, the upside is there. He's been a top 12 wide receiver once. But the clear downside, he could be like the wide receiver 87, and I wouldn't be surprised. Shout out to Sidney Crosby. Next up, we move to Allen Lazard, the Lazard King, going up against the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football, because you waited all... Oh, that's Sunday night. The Monday Night Football theme song is so lame compared to the Sunday Night Football theme song, but we've been recording for like 40 minutes, so we're just going to skedaddle out of here instead of sitting here fucking talking for 8 hours, because it's going to take even longer for the video to come out, and then the video is going to come out like 11 at night. People be like, Nick, why do you release your video so late? It's because I got shit to do, man, on Friday. I'm busy, okay? This isn't my only job, just so you guys know. I stayed on the live streams, but if you're just a video watcher, which is okay, live every Thursday before kickoff around 7 p.m. I'm live at 12 p.m. On Sunday before kickoff, but what I'll tell you is I work another job. I don't have all day to just sit here. If I did, there would be a much better upload schedule, which you guys saw last season when I was unemployed. I just did this. There was a very concise upload schedule. Video comes out at 10, the video's out at like 5, right? Whereas this, video's out at like 12, and then sometimes the video's out at like 10:30 or 11. So sorry about that, but you know, the boys got to work. So we got Allen Lazard going up against the Buffalo Bills. Now, if I know one thing about Allen Lazard, it's that he's not very good. But another thing that I know about him is that in prime time, he's a primetime merchant, right? Allen Lazard, week 1, primetime against the Niners, 2 touchdowns. Then he goes up against the Titans. That game's at 1, 0 touchdowns. Then up against the Patriots, 1 touchdown in prime time. Then they go up against Denver. It's 1 o'clock. It's raining, 0 touchdowns. Then up in Minnesota, up in London, a touchdown. Primetime games, he has 4 touchdowns in primetime games. 0 in non-primetime games. This game's in primetime. I'm going to think he's going to score. So, Allen Lazard, anytime touchdown scorer. That's really my only analysis on him. Aaron Rodgers loves him for some reason. So we're going to rank him here. Next up, we got Xavier, somebody touch him, I Leggett, wide receiver of the Carolina Panthers going up against the Atlanta Falcons. Removed from the injury report. He missed a lot of that game last week up against the Bears. Well, he probably wouldn't have done much. He did suffer a shoulder injury, but he's not on the injury report. I like the team to bounce back. I like the spot up against Atlanta. Maybe a high-scoring, low-key, high-scoring game. He had 10 targets in week 4. Well, I don't think that's going to repeat. If he could get 6 or 7, he should be fine. And then final guy here, we got Darius Slayton, another guy that I don't think is very skilled at all, but no Malik Neighbors, and we saw Darius Slayton get 11 targets last week. Again, I don't think he's going to get 11 targets again, but it is possible up against a Bengals defense that has more holes than a glory hole. Wide receiver 7 last week up against the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. 1 touchdown, 122 yards, 8 receptions on those 11 targets, and a touchdown. Again, not going to sit here and get down on my knees for Darius Slayton because I don't think he's very good, but I think he could have a sneaky good game. Other guys ranked below here would be Lad McConkey, Khalil Shakir, DeAndre Hopkins. I don't even think Khalil Shakir is going to play, but we can still wait to hear a little bit more. Dontavian Wicks, Keenan Allen, Roma Dunze, Michael Wilson, that kind of range, Jerry Jeudy. So thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you didn't end up enjoying, make sure you guys fist that fucking subscribe button, PewDiePie style. Leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you are not already following me on Twitter, please do at NotoriousFantasy. I tweet out all types of stuff. I live tweet during the game, so if you guys want to see how mad I am during the football games, you can see that, especially during the Dolphins games. I get real riled up. Make sure you guys do check out Underdog, promo code Notorious, to get that free pick. Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty, higher than half of a total yard, plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Again, promo code Notorious, or by clicking on the link in the video description. I love you guys all more than you will ever know. Hit 37,000 subscribers recently, which is just insane. I owe it all to you. I love you guys, as always. Good boy.